My son will be happier if I go too.
Take me with you on your honeymoon. When I saw my mother-in-law with her arms crossed in distinguished attitude, I felt something similar to giving up. No matter what she said, I had always been determined not to make things worse, but I couldn't do it anymore. I'm going to teach her a lesson. Despite my feelings, I smiled at my mother-in-law. Please, please, let's go together. My name is Nadia. I've dated Theo, my coworker who is years older than me. We just recently got married and we're so excited to start our new life together. We are living a happy life as newlyweds. At the beginning of our relationship, Theo was very dependable and cool. But as time went by, he started to show his cute and cuddly side.
I acted tough and cool because I wanted you to see me that way.
I loved how he hesitantly confessed his feelings. Life was smooth sailing, but there was one thing that worried me. That is my mother-in-law. For the past few weeks, my mother has been bothering Theo and me a lot. His parents are divorced, and he was his mother. She must love him very much after she overcame so many hardships. My mother-in-law's love for her son was so great that it was rumored even among his relatives. Now she lives alone at her parents'. She probably misses her son. She began to visit our home frequently.
Good evening.
I made your favorite food today, Theo. Let's eat it together. My mother-in-law would come into our house without even taking a glance at me. At first, Theo responded positively, but recently he started making faces. I told you to call me in advance when you're coming. You don't have to come every day. Nadia cooks for me. It's only been 3 months since fix to live together. You could be a little more considerate. He says this and warns her, but my mother-in-law is not the type of person who would be upset by such an incident.
Well, it's my son's house.
And I care about you so much. That's why I went out of my way to your favorite food. I bet Nadia's food isn't nutritious enough for you either. I bet Nadia's food isn't nutritious enough for you either.
But that doesn't mean...
Besides, you love my food, don't you?
I don't think a young woman who can care of the housework would be able to make food for you. That's why I'm making it for you. Saying that, my mother-in-law looks like she's sneering at me. I sensed some malice from the moment she greeted me at our wedding. After our marriage, she became hostile towards me. She was obviously making fun of me, is still Theo's mother. If I could, I wouldn't want to add any further aggravation to our relationship. I'm the one Theo loves the most. Moreover, she seems to think that Theo is forcing himself to eat the food I cook. Today is not the first time my mother has brought food. She has been bringing us more and more each day. Moreover, the things she brings are more elaborate, possibly to bring me.
Theo, today is beef stew.
I cooked homemade beef stock for this recipe, and it was amazing. If you only have things that can be few minutes, they all taste the same. You'll get bored, won't you? Theo warns my mother-in-law, seeing silence. You've never eaten Nadia's food. Why the hell are you talking like that? Apologize to her. Nadia's food tastes so good, you know. Even when Theo was furious, his mouth not seemed to flinch. Instead, she just laughed and patted the shoulder.
Oh my goodness.
You don't have to protect her with, "You're really kind, aren't you? I'm so proud of you." Without breaking her pace, my mother continued.
Yes. How is your non-moon planning going?
Although we got married 3 months ago, we have yet to go on our honeymoon. Theo and I both have an S. We had planned to take a long vacation on a relaxing trip. However, I noticed my mother-in-law's eyes light up.
I'd like to go to Europe.
Beautiful cities and delicious food. Are there many sightseeing spots in this area? Hawaii is also nice, although it's common. Spending some time on a beautiful beach. Where else can I find information about this topic? It seemed like she wanted to end the conversation quickly. Well, I'm not sure what you mean by edit, but I can certainly help with any spelling or grammar mistakes. We're thinking about where to go, so keep your suggestions in mind. Apparently, my mother-in-law didn't like that and glared at me sharply.
Suggestions in mind?
You can't decide on this without me. This is a trip for the three of us.
What?
I look at Theo in surprise. A trip for three? Is it possible that she's planning a surprise non-honeymoon for us? She hasn't said anything about the before this. Like me, Theo couldn't hide his surprise either.
Mom, what do you mean by a trip for three of us?
It's our honeymoon. Of course, it's going to be just us. Theo's voice was laden with anger and impatience, but his mother paid no attention to him.
Oh, there's no rule that says mothers aren't allowed to accompany their children on their honeymoon, is there?
Three of us are traveling together. We are a family, so let's have fun. Theo tried to persuade her again and after that, but she didn't get convinced to sing.
I'm going to leave for today.
But please don't schedule the destination without my permission. I have my opinions too, and please make sure you eat the stew. With that, she left. By this time, Theo's face was full of fatigue.
I'm sorry, Nadia.
I will convince my mother. I want to go on a non-moon with only you. So please don't hate me. As soon as my mother-in-law left, Theo apologized deeply. Of course, I confidently replied.
I would never hate you.
My love for Theo did not change, regardless of who his mother-in-law was. She has shown this kind of behavior with her son. In fact, she had been warned by her daughter and relatives before.
No mother would go on a non-moon, son.
It's a once-in-a-lifetime thing. Let them go alone. My sister-in-law, in particular, was scolded by my mother-in-law, but my mother-in-law wouldn't listen at all.
It's really troublesome to have such an insane mother.
If you don't clearly say no, she's going to follow you. Theo received a message from his sister, and his shoulders dropped in despair. Once again, my mother-in-law came to visit our home. This time, she spoke in a more force than usual.
Everyone says it's unusual.
But when I looked into it, it turns out that there are more cases than you might think. Parents accompanying their children honeymoon. So I'm not wrong. What's wrong with me going with him on his honeymoon? I'm definitely going with you now.
I've told you so many times,
Theo replied,
I'm going on my non-moon with Nod.
I'm not planning to take you on this. Maybe some parents will tag along, but most will leave their kids with a babysitter or grandparent. That's a great idea, with the kids' permission, of course. I haven't given you permission. Just up. But she's not the type of woman who gives up easily.
I can't believe you would say such.
You've never disobeyed me before. You learned to rebel after you married, Nadia. That's why I was against this marriage. I honestly thought, why do I have to be told such a thing? My mother-in-law's anger was directed at me.
Nadia.
It's because of you that Theo became person. How can you take responsibility for, my son will be happier if I go too? Take me with you on your honeymoon. Then I will forgive you for everything. No matter what she said, I always determined not to make things worse. I had a lot of dark emotions swirling inside. But despite my feelings, I smiled at my mother-in-law. If you let me stay married to you by coming on this trip, let's go together. At my reply, Theo turned pale and panicked.
Nadia, wait a minute.
I chuckled as I steadily made my way through the head. My mother-in-law, unaware of my irritation, happily responded.
Oh, you're more understanding than you'd be.
You should have done as I told you beginning. Well, it's your non-moon, so I'll decide where to go. Call me when you've decided. With that, my mother-in-law left. A few months later, the three of us were really going on our honeymoon. The destination was a famous beach. I planned everything about the trip, the way I dressed to the way I behaved. I made every possible preparation to match Theo's taste to the fullest. After dropping off our luggage at the hotel, we immediately went to the beach. After a long day of fun, we went to have dinner at a nice restaurant. As we were enjoying the food that was served to us one after another, Theo shyly said,
Maybe it's because we are on our high horse.
"But you look prettier than usual," I replied with a big smile. "Thank you, Theo. I am really happy to be on my honeymoon with you." Then Theo gave me a serious look.
I am so happy to have married you.
"I look forward to my future with you." Theo was in a good mood, shown through his sweeter words than usual. It was not that he was ignoring his mother, but Theo seemed to only see me, and I could only see Theo. Of course, this was a calculated effort to make me look prettier than usual. A frilly, cute dress with a hibiscus ear. I spoke in a sweet tone of voice, which I usually don't use, to create the mood Theo would like.
Oh, hi there.
My mother-in-law could not come into our world and was isolated. She couldn't stand it and began to speak ill of me.
This restaurant is not that good.
You don't like this kind of food, do you, Theo? And Nadia, you really don't know anything about Theo, do you? If it were me, I would have chosen restaurant across the street. Then Theo glared at his mother.
If you feel that way,
Why don't you just go to that restaurant? It's disrespectful to say such a thing about this restaurant, Nadia. I think the food is delicious. I'm really grateful that she took me to a restaurant where I could eat my favorite shrimp. I really appreciate it. Theo's low, husky voice made my moth flinch for a moment. But then she looked at me and start things again.
You can't eat shrimp at any restaurant.
Besides, what with the plan for today's meeting, I have to go back home early. Just going to the beach and eating? We've come all the way here for a trip. This is something we could have done house.
why don't you go home then?
Theo said without a pause.
She was the one who invited you to the party.
What S with that tone of voice? I didn't want you to come in the first place. If you're going to be a stinker on honeymoon, why don't you just go hot? No one asked you to come. My mother-in-law was at loss of words and looked down. We then left the restaurant and headed to our hotel. On the way, Theo put his hand around and stayed right next to me and didn't go away. My mother-in-law kept talking to Theo, but each time she was coldly dismissed. Soon after, she began to distance he from us. Yes, this was my goal. I wanted to show how much Theo thous me. My mother-in-law is very organized, while I am not. Everything in its place, whereas I tend to be more chaotic. Through this non-moon, I had no intention of playing any trick because I was confident from the beginning that Theo loved me and that I could be a good mother-in-law. If I had played tricks on her, there was a possibility that my mother-in-law would have accepted defeat. That's why I wanted to show her how much she was loved by everyone. that she would not be able to make a rebuttal. There is no space between them and if my mother-in-law thought this, I'd be a success. The next day, we were able to enjoy our honeymoon to the fullest. The reason was that my mother-in-law suggested that she'll look after our son while we were away. She was giving off a blatantly sour attitude, but Theo left her to go alone. This also seemed to have taken its toll on her, and she remained quiet until the last of them had gone. However, the tragedy did not end there. My mother-in-law now speaks ill of my sister-in-law after returning from her visit.
It was terrible.
She made sexual advances towards Theo and treated me like I was invisible. She is such a clever woman. I knew I shouldn't have let her marry son. She must have thought she could feel better, and continued to tell her how right she was.
Theo has also fallen in love with a woman.
He doesn't care about me at all, even though it was a trip with his I'm the one who's important, right? The mother should come first, should be the priority. Of course, my sister-in-law brushed off my mother-in-law's opinion.
What are you talking about?
The nun moon is for the two of them. It's only natural that you would be, but I wouldn't want to go on my non-moon with my mother either.
No!
That I'm wrong?
Well, you still think you're right.
I can't believe you. I'm so ashamed that my own mother is this. From then on, my mother-in-law has been ignored by my sister-in-law. Moreover, my sister-in-law seems to spread this story to all the relatives, and she had to live a lonely life.
I'm sorry.
I hope you can forgive me. I don't mind if Nadia stays too, so move in with me. My mother-in-law sent such a message. Once she couldn't bear the loneliness. However, Theo never responded because he didn't like how his mother worded, I do mind if Nadir stays too. A year has passed since our honeymoon. My mother-in-law hasn't visited us for a long time. Theo and I, on the other hand, have been able to grow in love without being disturbed by anyone. We will be welcoming a new member to our family in 6 months. We both look forward to shopping for baby items on weekends. I am looking forward to living a peaceful life with my family of 3, excluding mother-in-law.